I want to share a story with you of how my daughter completely changed my life and my self-development journey. And by the way, it's probably not going to be what you think. As I watched my daughter grow and as I watched her evolve and grow up from the time that she was born, but from the time that she came into this world, over the course of the next months and years, I saw something really fascinating. It was such a natural evolution. Everything that she would do was a natural evolution. I would watch her as she was learning to crawl, learning to move, and I'd watch her just army crawl. And I thought to myself, no one told her to do that. She certainly didn't learn it from me. I don't army crawl around my house. It's a natural evolution. And as I watched her learn to walk or take her first steps or speak her first words, I thought to myself, no one taught her how to do that. She just did it. It was a natural evolution. It was instinct. And so as I watched her come into this world, she's been totally and utterly herself. No one told her to do it. She didn't question it. It's been instinct. And so I couldn't help but ask myself, when do we lose that? Because it's not conscious decision on her part. It's just this natural evolution, this inner knowing that's guiding her. And I thought to myself, we must all have that, but when do we lose it? When do we lose that inner knowing? You see, as I've watched her grow, I've studied her like I do all people. And what I've seen has fundamentally changed my outlook on life and on human behavior. Because when she came into this world, no one told her what to do. No one's guiding her to do these things. It's natural instinct. This is her natural behavior and evolution. And so then I thought to myself, if she has this inner knowing, if she's following her own guidance, her own intuition, well, then that means that lack of confidence must be taught. My daughter has only expressed love, which means that hate and intolerance must be taught. As I watched her learn to walk, I would watch her fall over and over and over and over again. And never once did she look up at me and say, "Mom, I think this just isn't for me. You know what? I don't think I'm capable of this walking thing. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." Which means that apathy must be taught. So far in her life, as a young child, I've seen her fail more than I've seen her succeed, which means that lack of confidence, that unworthiness, that fear of failure, it must be taught, because I've never once seen her question her self-worth. I've never once seen her think to herself, maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe I can't do it. Maybe because I didn't succeed the first time, there's something wrong with me. She just simply gets back up and keeps trying. That's what her natural instincts tell her to do. I've never seen her question her ability to do something, which means that limiting beliefs must be taught. I've never seen her look in the mirror and say, "I hate all these things about my body," which means that lack of confidence must be taught. And I've never seen her cower before a challenge, which means that anything else must be learned. She's not fearful of the new and unknown. She's fascinated by it, and she's curious about it. She doesn't look to tomorrow in fear, and she doesn't look to the past in judgment. She simply lives in the now, which means that anything else must be taught. And I thought to myself, the good news is, if all of these behaviors that we accumulate as adults very clearly are learned, then the good news is they can also be unlearned. And then it finally occurred to me, as I watched this little person who's only made it around the sun twice, move through life with all of this confidence, with all of this surety, with all of this inner knowing, that maybe I'd had it wrong this whole time. Maybe it wasn't about learning. Maybe it was really about unlearning all the stuff, all the self-talk, all the things that get in our way, that stand in between where we are and where we want to be. You see, that inner knowing guided her to do things that I've coached people for years on how to master. She's uncovering things that I spend years, months, teaching people how to uncover, all by just following that inner knowing. I thought maybe it's not about learning at all. Maybe it's about learning to trust the inner knowing. Learning to not consult what's in front of us, but rather what's inside of us. Not what people tell us, but what we know through our inner guidance, through instinct. And then as I watched her, I thought to myself, maybe my job as a parent isn't to help her learn at all. Maybe it's rather to just make sure that as she grows, there's less she needs to unlearn. See, I used to think that growth was this constant state of becoming. And I've come to learn by watching her and by implementing these things in my own life that maybe it's rather a continuous journey of unbecoming, a continuous journey back to who we really are, who we really want to be, what our inner knowing guides us toward before the world, before everybody else told us who we should be and what we should do. This is a perpetual shedding of everything that is not the truest, most authentic version of ourselves. It's a slow release of the damper that we all put on ourselves so as not to burn too brightly for this world, so as not to shine too brightly. Enough of that. It's a journey to find out who we were before everybody told us who we should be. Unbecoming what's right for what's true, a journey of looking for all the answers that eventually culminates in an understanding that they've just been within us all along. If only we would have the courage to listen. If only we would have the courage to trust that inner knowing. As I was writing classes and I was writing talks, I thought to myself as I watched her, what is it that I need to unlearn? What is it that I need to unbecome in order to make room for all that I could be? Who was I before? If I had been in an environment where I simply had less that I need to unlearn, who would I be right now? And so I built a couple of questions that I'm going to give to you today so you can spend some time journaling on this and thinking about what you might be doing right now if you had just had less that you had to unbecome, if you could just figure out a way to follow that inner knowing. So you might be sitting there asking yourself, so how do I do that? How do I figure out who I was before the world told me who I wanted to be? How do I figure out what I need to unbecome? How do I figure out what's inside of me? If I don't have experience following that inner knowing, how do I find it? Well, I put together some questions that'll be helpful for you to journal on so that you can spend some time thinking about this and getting back to what you actually want to do. Who do you actually want to be? And by the way, as a result of becoming that person, what might you also achieve? I'm going to give you the questions now. Spend some time, go through these at your own pace, and just take some time to journal about this. Question number 1, who was I before the world told me who to be? Question number 2 is, what am I doing right now? Or in what way am I behaving right now that is not the truest, most authentic version of myself? Because anything else is a lie. What action am I avoiding by making something more complicated than it actually is? Next question is, when was the last time I felt truly light and joyous? When was the last time that I did something purely for the joy of it? Next question, what am I resisting because it's hard or uncomfortable that's ultimately going to cost me in the future? What's one activity that I know if I did it consistently, I'm certain would transform my personal or business life, or both? What do I need to unbecome in order to make room for all that I could be? What is the truest, most beautiful version of my life? I call that the unlived life within you. What's that unlived life within you? What is the truest, most beautiful version of your life? Let yourself dream for a second and just write that down. And based on all of these answers I just wrote down, what action do I need to take today? In other words, how do I get closer to this life? Otherwise, what are we doing this for? If you're not going to take action on it, then it just remains the dream. The way that you bring this into reality is you take action on it. So based on my answers, what do I need to take action on today? Look, I don't know what's hidden inside of you. I don't know your secret talents, your aspirations, your longings. I have no way of knowing that. But I know something miraculous lives in you. And bringing that to light is going to take work and faith and focus and courage and hours of devotion. So go find that unlived life within you. Go find the truest, most beautiful version of your life and bring it to reality. Because there's no other life worth living. I'm Nikki Miller. This is Life on Purpose. If you want more, subscribe to our channel or click the link below to sign up for our newsletter or follow us on Instagram, TikTok at The Nikki Miller.